You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast at savage.love.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
Magdalene Taylor writes about sex and culture. She was a recent guest here on the Savage Lovecast and just had an opinion piece in the New York Times about dating apps. Dating apps, of course, Taylor writes, are the de facto medium through which single people meet each other. But even as more people are using the dating apps, fewer people are finding dates on them. The headline on Taylor's piece, "It's Not You, Dating Apps Have Been Getting Worse." And one way they've gotten worse that I learned about reading Taylor's piece really surprised me. In the early heyday of Tinder, the only limits on whom you could potentially match with were location, gender, and age preferences. Today, however, many apps have pooled the people you'd most like to match with into a separate category, such as Hinge's Standouts section, often only accessible to those who pay for premium features. And in a cruel twist, Taylor goes on, even if you do decide to sign up for these premium features, many people find the idea of someone paying extra to match with them to be off-putting. So you can't see the people you most want to match with if you don't pay extra to see those people, but the people you'd most like to match with might not want to see you if you pay extra to see them. What a frustrating catch-22. 6 frustrated dating app users filed suit earlier this year, accusing the Match Group, which owns Tinder, Hinge, and The League, of intentionally making it harder to find matches in order to trap people into using their services forever. And one of the ways Match Group does this is by hiding who you most want to see, hiding your best matches. And they know who your best matches are because they're spying on you. There was a story in the Washington Post last week, brought to my attention by a Lovecast listener, about the Mozilla Foundation's Privacy Not Included project. Since 2017, the Privacy Not Included project has alerted consumers to privacy violations by giant tech companies. And they recently looked at the 25 most popular dating apps and concluded that 22 of them, including Tinder, Grindr, OkCupid, Hinge, Bumble, and more, were selling the personal information of their users, including their users' quote, sexual preferences and experiences. So the Privacy Not Included project has slapped Privacy Not Included warning labels on these 22 dating apps. These labels mean stay away, Zoe McDonald of the Privacy Not Included project told Chris Velasco, Washington Post's technology reporter. You know what else means stay away? Stay away means stay away, and it takes one less word than privacy not included. As warning labels go, privacy not included, it has to be explained, so why not go with the explanation, which again is a whole word shorter. Anyway, it's not news that every site we interact with is tracking us. Every click, every search, everything we do online is a data point that can seemingly be leveraged against us. I was booking a flight recently with my boyfriend. He found the flight we wanted on his computer. I was going to pay for it, so I looked it up on my laptop and was quoted a price nearly double the price he was quoted. He's younger and more frugal than I am. He flies a lot less often. It felt like some supercomputer somewhere knew his airline price pain point was a lot lower than mine. So we bought the tickets on his computer. That kind of freaked me out a little bit. And then reading about what the dating apps have been up to, freaked me out a little bit more. Because it's not just people who want to sell us lube or lingerie or butt plugs or bondage gear after scraping our data about our sexual experiences or practices that might want to get their hands on our data. People who want to do us harm might want to know what dating apps we've been on and what we were looking for on those dating apps and what we said to the people we interacted with on those dating or hookup apps. Grindr, which is right now being sued for sharing the HIV statuses of some of its users with third-party vendors, sold user data to another third-party vendor that in turn sold that data to a conservative Catholic group that used that data to out gay priests to their bishops. They were trying to get these priests in trouble, probably got some of these priests dates with their bishops, but I think it's wrong. I know, there's not a lot of sympathy out there for closeted gay Catholic priests, but I believe we're all entitled to privacy on principle. And principles aren't principles if they're selectively applied. So I don't think Grindr should be outing Catholic priests for the same reason I don't want the dating app where I met my boyfriend to share that data with our bishop. And here's another data point people have been talking about the last couple of weeks. More and more people, particularly young men, aren't dating or having sex, according to the Pew Research Center. Data that are alarming to social scientists. Scott Galloway, clinical professor of marketing at the New York University Stern School of Business, also the co-host with Kara Swisher of the terrific Pivot podcast, shared some advice on Real Time with Bill Maher last Friday for these young men.
And here's a message to all young people. Nothing wonderful is going to happen to you on a screen. Mm-hmm. And here's the bottom line. Going out, trying to meet a woman or a man, putting up with the rejection, the humiliation, the endurance, showering for God's sakes, having a plan. This shit is hard. This shit is hard. But again, another, call out to young people. Romantic comedies are 2 hours, not 15 minutes for a reason. This shit is hard, and you know what? It's worth it. Yeah. Get out, meet people.
I've given similar advice. Don't just get on dating apps. Don't just look at a screen. Go places, do shit, meet people. But as dating apps get crappier and crappier and creepier and creepier, going places, doing shit, meeting people is going to get more important. And some Gen Zer and younger millennials seem to be doing just that, according to Magdalene Taylor. Her opinion piece in the New York Times opens with her friends sitting in a bar complaining about how frustrating the dating apps have become, and ends with this. There is some push toward a return to the real that could save us from this pattern. New in-person dating meetup opportunities and the return of speed dating events suggests app fatigue is spreading. Maybe we'll start meeting at bars again, rather than simply swiping through the apps while holding a drink. In other words, go someplace, have a drink, make eye contact with a stranger. That's how we used to do it, us Gen Xers and boomers, and it worked. Going places, doing shit, meeting people, got us laid. It can get you laid too. All right, coming up on today's show, on the Micro, tons of your Qs, lots of my As, and on the Magnum that you can subscribe to at savage.love, Jenée Desmond-Harris joins me for a second opinion interview. Desmond-Harris became Slate's fifth Dear Prudence advice columnist a couple of years ago, and I have some questions for her now that she's got some years under her belt, about how she feels about this gig, writing an advice column, being an advice columnist. We talk about the racket, the advice racket. We also talk about seeing sex workers and body counts and double standards. That's on the Magnum. Subscribe at savage.love. If you're already a Magnum subscriber, we're going to get right to the questions. If you're already a Magnum subscriber, show starts now. If you're not yet a Magnum subscriber, you got to listen to a couple of ads first. This episode is brought to you by Good Vibes. In celebration of Masturbation May's upcoming anniversary with Good Vibes, get 20% off with the code SAVAGE20. Head over to goodvibes.com/savage and remember to use promo code SAVAGE20 at checkout to get that discount.
This episode of the Lovecast is brought to you by the good folks at Squarespace. They make it easy to build a beautiful website, blog, or online store. Head on over to squarespace.com/savage for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code SAVAGE to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
Foria is an all-natural health and sexual wellness company with product lines using the power of plant actives and CBD to effectively enhance intimacy, sexual pleasure, daily well-being, and relief from discomfort. Get 20% off your first order by visiting foriawellness.com/savage.
Hi, Dan. I'm calling to ask you about flirtation. So I have a girlfriend, who's very, very attractive. And I also have a guy friend to whom I'm not attracted, somebody I don't want to date. And he and I are very close, and we hang out a lot, a few times a week. Once, a couple of weeks ago, I decided I wanted to introduce all of my friends to each other. So I had a party, and my female friend is going through a breakup right now, and so she came and brought her flirtatious energy. My guy friend came, and he brought another guy friend, and my hot female friend and my friend's new friend hit it off and started flirting really hard, and they've since started dating. But on the night of the party, my female friend was really flirtatious with kind of all of the guys at the event, just touching them and laughing a lot, and being her energy was very big, and it was quite obvious. And there was a point at which all of the guys ended up leaving with her to kind of go to a club. Like I said, she's really, really attractive. So even though she had set her sights on this one particular guy, it ended up kind of derailing the night. And I went away and had a bit of a feeling about it. For the record, I'm also quite flirtatious, and I have spent a lot of time flirting with guys in my past, but there was something about this behavior that felt inherently competitive, and I felt a bit ashamed about how I was reacting to it emotionally because I was hurt and upset, and it just felt petty. But the more I thought about it, it seems like when somebody is so flirtatious that it sort of forces other people out, there's something kind of selfish or inconsiderate about it. And she and I ended up talking about it and had a really lovely, positive conversation. But I'm just sort of wondering what you think. Do you think that there's anything sort of like reckless or unkind about someone coming to an event and flirting that hard with all of the guys? I just wondered if this is just totally a me thing, or if you think that there's some kind of etiquette about how people should behave around other people's friends. I don't know. Just looking for your thoughts. For the record, I'm not attracted to my guy friend at all. Never want to date him. I'm dating somebody else right now in the new part of a relationship. So yeah, it's not like I'm feeling possessive over him in that way. I don't really know if this is like a me problem or if there's sort of like a bigger rule here.
I accept the premise of your question and your version of events. There are people out there who have that combo of charisma and just fucking hotness and have the power to clear a room the way your hot, flirtatious friend cleared that room, cleared your party of all available men. I've seen people who can flirt with one person after another, even while lavishing special attention on just one particular person at a party or a club, and still somehow manage to get everybody to leave with them at the end of the night to go to another club or go to a house party or whatever. I've seen the it boy in Gayland do a version of what you describe your intensely hot friend doing at your party. So she has that power. Well, with great power comes great responsibility. I think that's in the Bible or Shakespeare. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. If she has that kind of charisma, if she has that kind of power, and you're able to talk with her about it, she's aware of it, well, then it was a little inconsiderate of her to wield her power in the way that she wielded her power at your party on that night. She selfishly gathered up all the guys and left with them. Now, men aren't helpless. Men have agency. If she was paying special attention to one particular guy all night, but managed to leave with every guy, what were all those other guys thinking? Were they all hoping they had a shot if she lost interest in the particular guy she was clearly lavishing special attention on all night? Or maybe they all thought she had a gangbang fantasy? For the record, recruiting guys on the fly at a party is not the best or safest way to realize your gangbang fantasy. Or maybe they all hoped that just being with her at the club would make them desirable in the eyes of other hot women who might be at that club, other friends of hers, when in reality, I am told women regard groups of men pathetically and hopelessly following one woman around a club with a certain degree of contempt. And I'm shocked that it didn't occur to a single guy who left with your intensely hot friend at the end of the party to stay at the party and be the only guy at the party. It would become, if one of them had stayed, a single sausage party. Good odds for a guy. But she was so powerful, they all left with her. Dickful thinkers, one and all, not a strategic thinker or some combo of dickful and strategic thinker among them. Yeah, she shouldn't have done that. It was inconsiderate. She wasn't taking into consideration what the other women at the party might have wanted. Not you. You're just concerned with, I guess, your other single friends at the party because you had your guy. You're dating a particular guy. She didn't drag your guy off. But she wasn't being considerate to the others, the other women at the party. Not that I'm guessing or I'm assuming other women at the party who wanted to head out to the club with her and all of the men that she had gathered up and convinced to go to the club with her at that moment couldn't have tagged along. But apparently people didn't want to. You say you had a convo with your intensely, powerfully hot friend. God, I would love to hear a tape of that conversation. And you said that she was receptive to your feedback and maybe she could see what she did and why it wasn't kind, fair, generous, and she will be more conscious of her great power and the great responsibility that comes with it in the future. So don't not invite her to your next party. But if she keeps pulling this or pulls this at every party that she goes to, at that point you can scratch her from your invite list.
Hey, Dan, Nancy, and the Tech Savvy at Rescue. I am a 40-year-old gay man living in the Midwest, and I was playing with a toy in the shower, as one does. And after I finished and I was putting the toy and the lube and everything away, I noticed the expiration date on the lube had passed. Now, it was a hybrid lube. I was using Spunk, and it was one of those like very large, I guess, industrial size bottles, the Costco size, if you will. And the expiration date was past like 4 or 5 months, and I wasn't sure if that is something to worry about. I bought new lube, everything's A-okay now, but I guess I was wondering if all the homos are checking the expiration date like milk, and I am just out of the loop and in the dark.
Expiration dates. We usually see them on food products, and lube ain't food, although some of us do find ingenious or incidental ways to ingest personal lubricants at times. But those expiration dates on food, they prompt us to throw away a lot of edible food. According to the National Resources Defense Council, 9 out of 10 Americans waste edible food based on ambiguous expiration dates. Quoting from their report, the current system of expiration dates misleads consumers to believe they must discard food in order to protect their safety. In fact, expiration dates are only suggestions by the manufacturer for when food is at its peak quality, not for when it's unsafe to eat. So, eat that yogurt the day after it officially expires, the day after the sell-by date. You're not going to die. And I think the same applies to personal lubricants that are a little out of date. According to the Food and Drug Administration, lubes have a shelf life of 1 to 3 years. And so, yeah, a conservative company, a company that maybe wants you to have to replace your lube more often, may put a 1-year expiration date on it, maybe based on the ingredients or the composition of a lube, a 3-year expiration date on some other lubricant, or, a company that hasn't figured out that if you put an expiration date on it of a year, you might sell more annually than if you put a 3-year expiration date on it. According to Condoms UK, which sells lubricants, what you want to watch out for is not necessarily the expiration date, or you don't have to toss your lube if it's a couple of months past the expiration date. What you want to look out for are changes in color or smell, changes in consistency, signs of separation where the different components of the lube are like oil and vinegar, separating in the bottle, or crystallization. And of course, you're not going to want to use a lubricant that feels like it's got a hard little sharp crystals in it. So the minute you got that into your hands, you would know to toss that lube. But you don't have to worry or be paranoid if your lube expired 2, 3, 4 months ago. Probably fine, unless, of course, you see changes in color, change in consistency, signs of separation, or crystallization, in which case you want to toss that lube. And this applies to food. Don't eat raw chicken. Don't drink spoiled milk. But yeah, we throw away way too much food. And while we're on the subject of expiration dates, I do want to say, don't eat raw chicken, everybody. Don't drink spoiled milk. Don't make sandwiches with moldy bread. But if it smells all right and it still looks all right, even if it's past the expiration date by a day or two, it's probably not going to kill you. And that was my actually first thought when you called. If expired lubes were dangerous in the way people think expired yogurts are dangerous, they would kill people, or people would get sick from expired lubes. And I would hear about it. And I've never heard about anybody getting sick from an expired lubricant, just as I've never heard of anybody dying of an expired yogurt. This episode is brought to you by Good Vibes. Masturbation May is around the corner. But did you know that we're celebrating the 29th anniversary of this groundbreaking holiday? Back in 1994, the White House made headlines for firing Surgeon General Jocelyn Elders for suggesting that masturbation be included in sex ed curriculums around the country. In defiance, Good Vibes declared May 1995 is the first ever National Masturbation Month. Good Vibes continues to lead the way when it comes to sexual inclusivity and pleasure for all. No matter what you're into or what you want into you, Good Vibes offers education and a diverse curated collection of products to satisfy your desires. From sensual essentials to luxurious pleasure products, they've got everything you need to explore your sexuality wherever you are in your pleasure journey. Head over to goodvibes.com/savage to see my personal favorites. You even get 20% off when you use the code SAVAGE20 at checkout. Come join us this Masturbation May at Good Vibes, and let's celebrate all things pleasure and self-love together. Don't forget, promo code SAVAGE20 for 20% off at goodvibes.com for the entire month of May. Come and get it and come.
Hello, Dan and friends. Calling in with a somewhat modern dating in the workplace scenario. So I work out of a co-working space, and someone else manages this workplace, and I have the hots for them, and I'm pretty sure she has the hots for me as well. So to be clear, neither of us are employed by the same person. No conflict there whatsoever. We just work in the same place, and we see each other every single day, Monday through Friday. I have a choice to be there. She doesn't. My first question is, how to, I guess, minimize the risk of me asking her out and then her just feeling really uncomfortable in the workplace if, she doesn't want that to happen or for any other reason, right? Second question is just how to ask her out in general. I normally have no problem asking people out in person, but I definitely don't want to do this while she's working. I want it to be outside of this workplace, so we just get to be ourselves. So do I wait for her outside when she leaves at the end of the day, or should I just make better efforts to have a chance to see her outside the workplace? I do have her number. I don't know if I should just call her. The only other dynamic is if she says yes and we start dating, seeing each other every single day sounds really weird to me. It's nice to have that little bit of separation between dates and seeing each other. And I'm not sure if we'll have enough distance to create desire or if we're just going to kind of get sick of each other really quick. But let me know if I'm just overthinking this.
I think about all the times someone asked me out that I didn't want to go out with. And yeah, it was awkward and I was uncomfortable when I was asked out by somebody that I didn't want to go out with. And then I think about the time somebody asked me out that I did want to go out with. And you know what? I would rather live in a world where sometimes people asked me out that I wanted to go out with than live in a world where no one ever asked me out that I didn't want to go out with. And they kind of come bundled together. If you live in a world where people can ask each other out, ask each other on dates, approach each other, and you want to be approached by some of those people, that means part of what you're signing up for, part of what you're going to have to put up with occasionally being asked out by somebody you don't want to be asked out with and putting up with the awkwardness and discomfort of that. What you need to bear in mind are the particulars of your circumstance here. I think it is fine for people to ask other people out, even if they've met in a workplace and you don't work for each other or with each other, you work beside each other. But this is a hill I'm willing to die on. Not sexual harassment to ask someone out. It is sexual harassment to keep asking someone out after they've made it clear they aren't interested. So you can ask this woman out, but you need to bear in mind, as you already do, you've intuited a couple of really important things. You have a choice to be there. She doesn't. She has a public-facing service job. She manages this office and has to keep all of the clients like you happy. And you think that the interest is mutual. You think she's attracted to you. She could just, like the barista on the corner, be smiling and pleasant and risking men misinterpreting her smiling pleasantries as romantic interest, as men are inclined to do. Men are also, in this gendered world expected, in your gendered world of opposite sex and desire, expected to make the first move, do the asking out. And so even women with those public-facing jobs who probably get asked out a lot would sometimes prefer the man that they're interested in to make that first move, to make the approach. And this may be the case. You may be reading the room and reading her accurately. What you need to bear in mind when you ask her out is you're probably not the first person to ask her out at work today, potentially. And so to minimize, not eliminate. Some people are going to want me to like tell you the way you minimize the risk of making her feel uncomfortable or awkward is to not hit on her at all. That's not minimizing, that's eliminating the risk. And if you eliminate the risk of anyone ever being made uncomfortable or to feel awkward about being asked out, then you have to eliminate the risk of anyone ever being asked out and feeling elated because it was the person they wanted to ask them out. So how do you minimize the risk? You don't wait in the parking lot or outside the workplace that you share to run into her, and you don't stalk her to find out where she goes so you can start popping up there. You just fucking ask her out. Go to her and say, hey, look, would you like to go on a date sometime? And then before she can take a breath and respond to you, you say, and if the answer is no, if I've misread things, just say no. I can hear a no. It'll be a little awkward for a little bit, but we'll power through it. We're adults, and I promise you I will respect that no and never ask again. And then if it's no, go work someplace else for a couple of days. Give it a little time. And then when you see her, smile, nod, whatever your usual but brief interactions are like, have one of those and then peel off. You know, you do have her phone number. I once called a guy that I had a crush on and asked him out, and the answer was no. We ran into each other, and it's different. Men asking men out is different because there is not the constant asking out that attractive women in public-facing jobs have to endure, just attractive women or women, period, moving through the world have to endure. It lands different when a man is asked out, I realize. But I was glad I asked him out because I got an answer. The answer was no. I could stop thinking about him and move on. And then when we saw each other next at the theater, we saw each other. I made a point of walking up to him and saying, hey, it's good to see you. Enjoy the play. And then peeled the fuck off. And it was less awkward the next time we ran into each other and the next time we ran into each other and we got to be friends. You can stick the dismount if you give somebody an out and you don't approach them in the parking lot at night after work.
Savage Lovecast is sponsored by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for creators and business owners to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place, all on your terms. Improve written content on any website, product description, or email with Squarespace AI, generating instant personalized results that know and show your brand identity. Explain what your site is all about, choose your tone, and enter what you need to get short or long form text. No matter the placement, Squarespace AI makes it easier to go live, stand out, and look so good online. Use their amazing visual design effects, built in and ready to go on any Squarespace website. Create your online aesthetic with dozens of modern and intuitive designs, then connect social and multimedia accounts in a few clicks to spread your message and look cool doing it. There are so many features available to you. Squarespace is like your savvy business partner who can take you to the next level. Head on over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/savage and use the offer code SAVAGE to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/savage and use the offer code SAVAGE.
Hi, Dan. So I was binge watching your show and I heard about this app called Seeking Arrangement, and I decided to give it a try. I told my girlfriend about it. We're in an open poly relationship and she was really weirded out. But for me, it started off as a joke. I actually kind of liked it. I liked the feeling. I felt empowered. Like lately in my job, I always feel like I'm underneath men and have no power in a bunch of things. And this is giving me some sort of power and redemption. It's also been a lot of good money, which I really need right now. It's not something I want to do forever, but I'm getting into it. But she doesn't get it. She has a real problem with it. She says she doesn't have a problem if I would date because I like the people, which I really do. I feel like I've been getting to know a lot of interesting men. But for her, the money thing has gotten her really squeaked out. And I want a phrase of empowerment, or how do I explain to her that I'm not oppressed, but I feel the opposite. How do I explain this to her? I don't think I can put it into words.
You may never convince your girlfriend that you're doing this of your own free will and that you find it kind of empowering, which may have come as a surprise to you. And you're not going to be able to convince your girlfriend because you say you're doing this right now because you need the money. And so your circumstances sort of conspired to coerce you into giving this a try. And then you were pleasantly surprised that you were actually meeting up with some men who were paying you for your time, that you actually kind of enjoyed getting to know. But fact of the matter is, you wouldn't be doing this. You wouldn't have met those men if you didn't need the money right now in the way that you do. So your girlfriend, even if you can tell her, I'm not being oppressed, I found this kind of empowering, we have to put up with men all the time, at least here are a small handful of men who are willing to pay us to put up with them. You may never be able to convince her of that fact because in the back of her mind, it's always going to be transactional in this way that to her feels illegitimate because it's not a freely entered into transaction because circumstances, again, conspired you economically. You were in a situation, a circumstance where you needed the money. And so you were open to this particular kind of sex work, which for you has been surprisingly, perhaps for you, a positive experience in the final accounting. And we're not yet the final accounting, you're still doing this. In the accounting thus far, a positive experience. And yeah, your girlfriend just is going to have to take your word for that. And you may not be able to convince her right away. You may not be able to convince her ever. You may do this for a time and stop doing it, and she'll always feel like it wasn't great for you or great in theory. She objects on principle to any sex work at all. And that's fine. You and your girlfriend, so long as she's not trying to control you, can have a difference of opinion about this. And you can turn to her and say, look, at some point you have to acknowledge my lived experience here and my ability to know my own feelings about this and just trust me that I'm screening these guys really well and that I'm only meeting up with guys that I have a good feeling about. And this has been thus far positive for me. You should also say to your girlfriend, you know what? I don't want to feel like if I start having a bad experience doing this, I can't tell you about it because I'm so defensive, because I'm in a position where I'm having to be really defensive about this. And you don't want that either. If this starts to make me uncomfortable, you want me to feel free to come to you right away and say that and ask for your support in getting out of it. And I'm likelier to feel comfortable doing that if you don't heap guilt and shit on me right now while I'm doing it, while it's a positive experience for me. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Foria, makers of products for amazing sex, the kind of sex you want to have. Intimacy massage oil can help create connection, help you or your partner enter a state of true relaxation, and stir arousal. Skin will be left feeling hydrated, soft, supple, and ready for anything. Remember that first date feeling, the butterflies, the warmth, the electricity of the first time your partner touched you? It all comes flooding back with Intimacy Massage Oil. I also recommend Awaken Arousal Oil. Awaken is like a juicy warm-up that helps get you really turned on, increasing your pleasure and deepening your orgasms with a partner or solo. Awaken uses CBD and warming, sensation-inducing organic botanicals that enhance arousal, sensitivity, pleasure, access to orgasm, and help with any discomfort. Best of all, Awaken just turns you on. So, as your resident sexpert, sexologist, sex haver, sex promoter, you have my permission to try this. Go ahead and treat yourself and your partner. Have your juiciest and deepest sensual experience with a bottle of Foria. Foria is offering a special deal for our listeners. Get 20% off your first order by visiting foriawellness.com/savage or use code SAVAGE at checkout. That's FORIA wellness.com/savage for 20% off your first order. I recommend trying their new massage oil combined with their Awaken Arousal Oil. And yes, you can thank me, and you will thank me later.
Hey, Dan and crew, 40-year-old female from the Midwest here. So, my boyfriend of over a year has had a sugar mama since before I met him. It's strictly online, and I was told strictly financial arrangement. I didn't find out about this relationship until about 9 months into us dating, so the lies and the betrayal were kind of there. in order to make this relationship work, I agreed to be okay with this situation as long as we had some ground rules. Those ground rules included it has to be strictly financial, which he told me it was, and the interactions between them two, I don't want them to be secret. If for some reason I grab his phone, I want to be able to read those interactions and not see anything that's deceitful or etc. So last week, I found an exchange between them where she said she can't afford the financial situation anymore, and he said, "Oh, don't worry, that's fine. We can stop the financial exchange. This is a direct violation against our agreement, and I don't know where to go from here." The jealousy and betrayal still comes up from the past when he had lied to me about this relationship before. So seeing the financial arrangement be put on hold and still seeing their interactions is kind of a tough pill to swallow. I need your help, Dan, on how do I move on from this? How do I be okay with my boyfriend basically lying about his sugar mama? I want everything to be ethical and above board, but there's just not a lot of honesty there.
Why are you reading your boyfriend's? Why are you allowed, for some reason, for whatever reason, for any reason you wish, to grab his phone and read his messages with his sugar mama or anyone else? Why do you not have boundaries? Why is your boyfriend not entitled to a little privacy and a zone of erotic / professional autonomy here? You say that there's not a lot of honesty in the relationship because you discovered your boyfriend giving this woman that he has this online-only sugar baby arrangement with a break on having to pay him for now, but still interacting with her. You say that's dishonest. To me, that seems long-term, perhaps strategic on his part. If they've had a pleasurable, ongoing exchange, where she's paying him for his attention and he's given her that attention and he's enjoyed getting to know her a bit, and she can't pay him right now, maybe she can make it up to him in the future. Maybe they can resume, even if she doesn't make back payments, the financial arrangement can resume down the road when she's in better shape financially. And maybe he figures she's more likely to start paying him for his time and attention again if he gave a little bit of that time and attention away to her now when she couldn't afford to pay him for it. I can wrap my head very easily around what your boyfriend might be thinking or doing here. Your boyfriend also might have reached a point with this woman where he just enjoys her friendship, support. The thing about sugar baby, sugar daddy, sugar mama relationships often is that there's more going on there than just here's some money, here's some dick, or here's some money, here's some pussy. Even if it's online only, here's some pics of dicks and pussy. Often there's a kind of mentor-mentee relationship that develops in these sugar baby, sugar daddy, sugar mama relationships with an older, wiser person. He may value having this woman in his life, in his corner, and they may talk about more than just sugar mama, sugar baby shit. And if he's come to regard her as a friend, step the fuck off. Let him have his friends, however they came into his life, and stop reading his phone. You can torture yourself less with whether he's being completely transparently honest with you about this relationship that he knows you disapprove of if you don't read his phone. But if you do read his phone, you're probably going to find out things that you'd rather not know and can't unknow. And maybe this relationship just isn't for you, because what you want is a boyfriend who isn't a low-key, online-only, very part-time sex worker. And this particular kind of sex work, sugar baby, sugar daddy, sugar mama, involves often a little bit of the boyfriend-girlfriend experience being fabricated, being bottled and sold, which does mean a little bit of like emotional back and forth, emotional engagement. And if you're not comfortable having a boyfriend who has that as his side hustle, maybe this guy and his phone aren't the boyfriend and the boyfriend's phone for you.
Hi, Dan, 29-year-old bisexual woman from the Pacific Northwest. I got surgically sterilized back in January after many frustrating years of being denied the procedure on the grounds of my age or gynecologist worrying that I'd regret it. I'm thrilled to have gotten the surgery, and I told a few of my close friends, and everyone has been so supportive. It was a great experience to share with people I love. My boyfriend and I have been together almost a year, and he's a fence sitter when it comes to wanting kids. He knows my stance, and we've talked about how his TBD life plans potentially clash with my reality. After my surgery, friends of his asked how I was recovering, which was always a surprise to me because I didn't tell them. He did, without me knowing. I was annoyed by this at first, since he knew I was telling only a few people in my life, but overall, I'm glad he has a group of people other than me to talk to about our relationship. I met his parents last weekend, and he warned me beforehand that his mom might probe me about my choice to get the surgery. I told him this was not an appropriate thing for his mom to bring up with me, and that if she mentioned anything, I expected him to deal with it, since it was he who told her in the first place. He knows I didn't tell my own parents because they'd disapprove. I don't want to be prescriptive about his friendships and relationships regarding what he tells other people, but this is getting out of hand. Can you offer advice about what I'm entitled to when it comes to privacy and what he's entitled to when it comes to support from his network?
Yes, your boyfriend needs to have people in his life that he can open up to about your relationship. Why would he tell his mother this, though? You, as an adult, you run your parents on a need-to-know basis. And the fact that your girlfriend of less than a year doesn't want to have kids and chose to sterilize or have herself sterilized because she was certain that she never wanted to have kids, that's not something mom and dad need to know at this point. You've been dating for less than a year. If mom says, what about kids? You guys talking about kids? All he needed to say was, hey, it's way too soon to even have that conversation. The with you mom is silent. Not too soon to have that conversation with you, obviously his girlfriend, because of the decision that you were making as you were dating, that you rightly disclosed to him, because if kids were something he was absolutely certain that he wanted to have, then he shouldn't make a large emotional and romantic investment in you. You weren't the right partner for him if kids were something he was absolutely certain he wanted to have with his future romantic partner or wife. So you did right disclosing that to him. I don't think it was right of him to run around telling everyone that he knows, including his parents, about this decision that you made, that you only shared with a few close, intimate friends, which I assume he knew you weren't telling absolutely everybody, and yet he somehow felt entitled to run around telling absolutely everybody. That displays really piss poor judgment on his part, and that his friends have such piss poor judgment that after he confided in them about this decision that you made, they felt they could come to you and just straight up ask you about it? I'm sorry. He sounds, I don't want to call him an idiot. He sounds a little thoughtless to the point of inconsideration. I mean, thoughtlessness is inconsideration, but you know what I mean? Like, he's inconsiderate and thoughtless. And then his friends are inconsiderate and thoughtless, and his mom is inconsiderate and thought. Do you really want to be wrapped up in these people? I would, if I were in your shoes, be second guessing this relationship at all. Yes, our partners have to have friends that they can confide in. One of the things that drives me crazy about those lists of micro infidelities, examples of micro cheating, is often on those lists has a friend that he goes to or she goes to and shares private, intimate details about your relationship. Yeah, we all need friends like that. That's not cheating. That's having, as you said, caller, a support network. But it's not a support network if it's a broadcast network, if it's absolutely everybody, every single friend of his and his mom too. No. He should have, if he needed to bounce this off people and think out loud about your relationship, his relationship with you and whether it had a future, confided in a couple of trusted intimates, as you confided in a couple of trusted intimates, and then asked them to be thoughtful and discreet, which he did not do. And if I were you, if I were in your shoes and he had done this to me, yeah, he wouldn't be the man I wanted to not have babies with. All right, time for some listener feedback. First up, a few comments about last week's show posted at savage.love. Says WC Calm, having read Neil McNeil's post on Medium, I think calling it a think piece is a misnomer. The one thing he doesn't do in his recounting of the rise and fall of his throuple is think. There's virtually no self-reflection in it at all. I found it intensely aggravating when I read it initially. I'm happy to say he comes across as significantly more reflective in his conversation with Dan on the Lovecast. Says Delta 35, regarding the caller who wasn't sure about disclosing his poly interests, but definitely wanted poly long-term, but was okay with monogamous at the start. Dan advised him to think about possibly disclosing 3 months in. I think that's fine if you're in your early 20s, but by mid to late 20s, disclose on the second or third date or only date off poly-friendly apps or put it in your profile. Otherwise, you're a huge time waster. I said disclosing 3 months in was an option. I will defer, however, to the sense of the Senate of Savage Love commenters who felt that 3 to 6 months in was way too long to wait to disclose something so important. Says Inspired Desires about the same caller. The caller needs to decide what he wants. Fewer dates with more realistic chances of meeting someone compatible, or more dates that are a string of breakups upon finding out you have a basic incompatibility. And finally, says Jeremy, hey Dan, just wanted to point out that cicada is pronounced with an S, not a ch. So, not cicada, as I pronounced it last week in the intro to the show, but cicada in the UK or cicada in the US, but no ch anywhere in the English-speaking world. You would think I might have known that, having grown up in the Midwest, where cicadas emerge from the ground to fuck all summer long every once in a while. But if I knew that at some point in my long life, I forgot it before recording the intro to last week's show. Sorry about that. All right, for more written comments from listeners and more of my written responses, check out Struggle Session, a weekly bonus column for Magnum subs, goes up almost every Thursday at savage.love. It is also the only place on the internet where you will find the Muppet-faced Man of the Week. And now, more listener feedback, listener response calls.
Hey, Dan, this is a licensed clinical mental health professional giving you a call. Recently, you had a caller call in about an OCD issue, I think related to over-cleaning their sphincter. And I wanted to just make a note. You mentioned that they should reach out to a therapist, which, yay, love to hear you bringing us up on the show. You also recommended that they specifically reach out for cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Just want to make a note. CBT is fantastic to use for anxiety, but it actually can worsen OCD symptoms. So when someone is looking for care for OCD, we recommend ERP, exposure and response prevention. This is a type of therapy that focuses on not overemphasizing the thoughts. Instead, we actually trigger those obsessions. Maybe in this person's case, okay, you're going to think really hard about all of the poop that's in your butt. And then we have them not engage in the compulsive behavior, the over-cleaning. So this is totally different than what CBT is, but it is our gold standard. This has the best results. So anytime someone is looking for OCD support, please mention ERP, exposure and response prevention. Thanks again for name dropping us all the time on the show. Really appreciate you getting clients into our office so we can help them out.
Hi, Dan. This is a response call for the guy who called into episode 913, not knowing how to articulate his interest in non-monogamy on a dating app. I actually think he should just put it in a simple way on his dating app and not waste anyone's time. But if he must leave it out, he should mention it on the first or second date. Because honestly, the people that don't bring up the question of monogamy on the first or second date are the people that are taking it for granted, right? The people that are assuming it. So he should bring it up on the first or second date, right? If the other person doesn't. And hopefully the other person does. And they also have a similar interest. I think there's a tinge of entitlement in this guy's call. Like, why can't I find everything I exactly want? It's like, what do you think? How do you think everyone else on dating apps feel? The other thing I'll add is I don't really think there's such a huge threat of people being biased against poly people anymore. I think it's a pretty mainstream idea at this point. I think femme-identified people on dating apps, myself included, are pretty sick of cishet guys using some reference to openness as an excuse for bad behavior. And I think that's what people are actually screening for when they see non-monogamy on a profile. So yeah, bring it up on the first date if you're not going to put it on your profile.
Dan, it's pronounced cicada.
Cicada. Thank you.
Cicada. Cicada. Cicada.
It's not a cicada. It's a cicada. Not Chiquita Bananas here. Cicada. Cicada.
And we're going to leave it there. We've got 3 ways for you to get us your questions or comments for future shows. You can record your question directly onto the website at savage.love/askdan, or you can make a voice memo on your phone and email your question or comment to q@savage.love, or you can call us on our landline and leave us a message at 206-302-2064. Consumer Protection British Columbia shut down Hump last weekend in Victoria, British Columbia, made us cancel all of our shows. A move that was as appalling as it was futile. People weren't allowed to gather together in a theater to watch short films riffing on pornographic themes in Victoria, British Columbia, because of government censorship. But it's not like people in Victoria weren't able to watch porn in Victoria last weekend. They still had their phones and their laptops. Anyway, come see what the censors in British Columbia don't think you should be allowed to see this weekend in Miami, Florida, Palm Springs, California. Hump is coming to you. Get tickets for Hump in Miami or Palm Springs or any of our tour dates in any of the cities we're coming to across North America at humpfilmfest.com. Follow me on Instagram and Threads at Dan Savage. Follow me at Blue Sky at Dan Savage, and you can still find me on The Mad Place at Big Dan Savage. Read Jenée Desmond-Harris on Slate, where she writes Dear Prudence. You can follow her on Twitter at jdesmondharris. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian and me and Nancy and the tech savvy at-risk youth. We will all be back at you next week for another installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thank you for downloading. Cicada